You know that one scene in this episode with our main female character and our main male character hiding from the rain? That scene reminded me so much of Garden of Words. If you never watched that movie, I really recommend it. But what I'm getting at is, when it came to that specific scene in this episode of Hibike, the animation, when it came to the backgrounds, to the rain effects and stuff like that, it really reminded me of Garden of Words. And I'm unaware of what company made Garden of Words, I really am. But the animation and the art in this episode of Hibike look very similar to Garden of Words. And I was just shocked to see that. I'm like, holy crap, the animation in that segment of this week's episode of Hibike. Like, Kyoto animation is, not really new when it comes to really beautiful animation and backgrounds and stuff like that. But it blew it out of the park with that one specific scene. Like, I was mesmerized by the rain scene. That rain scene was just so damn good. So damn good. In terms of production quality I have seen through this season of anime, besides Fate's production quality with, its talented artists and stuff like that, I feel like that right there, best usage of animation and art I've seen of spring 2015. Hands down. That was too fucking good. That was so good. Now, this episode of Hibike, besides the animation and that one scene that reminded me a lot of Garden of Words, this episode kind of confronts more drama, setting up some romance, and kind of progressing our characters a little bit more further to their in-game goal. So, the main spotlight of this episode is kind of one of our characters quitting the band because she can no longer continue to participate in the band and try to go to the concert or whatever. She can no longer continue that because she no longer has the time to spend in the band and also study for college. And so this is like a rock on the hard place, and stuff like this does happen. It reminds me a lot of what was currently going on in Baby Steps. For instance, how our main male character in Baby Steps, he has to either choose, if like he fails at this upcoming tournament, he has to go for college, or he's got to study really hard. And it kind of reminds me of the situation like this that's going on in Hibike. For instance, one of our characters, has to give up band because if she doesn't do, her work and study for college, she is going to fail. She's not going to be able to get into college of her choice. So she had to make a hard decision. She had to leave behind her friends to be able to seek out her future career, her future job. And you can't really blame her quitting the band. Let's face it, okay? If you're in that situation and you had to choose between a club band that, brings you happiness, which I don't really think it's right to sacrifice your happiness, but people do have to do that. But if it came down to it where you had to sacrifice this fun, happy time you had with a time where you need to buckle down and prepare your future self for whatever goals you're setting out to do, for instance, your future of college or job or whatever, you need to choose that path. Because, if you sat around, you're eventually going to have these cards just slip out of your hand and you're never going to be able to go down your dream path with a job or whatever. So, to see that, it's very respectable. I don't think that the person quitting this episode should really be blamed for that, and anyone that really does have hard feelings about the in the band or club room really needs to rethink and consider the viewpoint of her having to give up the band to go and study for college. So regardless of that, besides that drama and being the majority of focus of this week's episode, you also have two other sets of drama that's taking place in this episode. You also have it to where our club president, she's very upset because she feels like she is not a proper person to be leading the club as a club president. She doesn't feel like she is the best. Like, she asked our main female character, like, okay, so what is my good qualities about me? Like, why should I be club president? And you had it to where she was being flattered because she was a nice person. Just all these different things that made it seem like she was a very nice person. And she's like, oh, so that's it. I'm just only nice. There's nothing else to me. And so you could kind of understand. She was just very frustrated because she feels like she is not proper for the job. But in fact, she is, because Asuka in this episode, she reveals like, okay, so I denied being club president, and why didn't you? If you didn't think you could do it, why didn't you deny it? That's what Asuka asked in this episode. So, you can really pull out of that scene, like, the different types of personalities. So, our club president of the band, she has this caring heart that's very sweet and nice, and she took it upon herself to care for her club and watch over them. That's kind of what she did. So, you can definitely see she's actually very suited to be a club leader after what we saw in this episode. And then also with Asuka, we come to find out her standpoint and more about her with some characterization. Like, she's neutral to the entire drama that happened the year beforehand with the second and third years, with, you know, the entire issues of what was going on. We got a little bit more in-depth with this episode about what happened, but we come to find out that Asuka was kind of neutral. She gave no shits about either side and just stayed out of it. That's what Asuka was, and she's still neutral to this very day, even in this upcoming year. So yeah, we get some characterization on Asuka, we get some characterization on our president of the band, and we also get to see some more characterization of a side character that had to quit the band to seek out their future career goals. And that's what this episode of Hibike was. And, like, that's a brief description, I guess you could say, of this episode. Was it good, though? Hell yeah. Hell yeah, it was a very good episode. Besides the beautiful animation art, I feel like a lot of the way these scenes flow with the slice of life elements to the comedy to the way the voice acting is done, it's done in a very damn good way. Like, the direction of the series, you can consider it very slow, or sometimes you can look at it and say, like, okay, there's barely anything happening, but there is things happening. There really is. I mean, if you look down into some of the character interactions going on, you see drama and you see these different things unfolding throughout the entire series. So there is things going on. It just depends on how you really look at it. Now, the music-wise, the music choice of this episode, man, I am a fan of these instrumental type music going on throughout this episode. Like, oh my god, I'm loving the instruments being used. It sounds good. Some of them sound kind of bad because, you know, they were fucking up in the band, but still, I am loving the series. Oh man, I'm surprised I'm actually enjoying this series. Usually, I would probably draw up a slice of life that's kind of like this. Usually I would. But I don't know. For some reason, it just really draws me in back week after week. It might be because of Asuka. I really like Asuka. She's like best girl of the series. So, yeah. I mean, that's my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, how'd you feel about this week's episode of Hibike? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? How do you feel about everything? I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.